Good evening, Vasters. How you going? Puppeteer here again. So hello to you all the way across the other side of the world. Hope you're all going well. Hope election day has been palatable for you, or good. We've certainly had a lot of news coverage of it over here in Australia. So we're pretty up to speed with what's been happening. Right, we're going to have a bit of a play around with FUNS today. We're going to have a bit of an introduction to them, learn how to use them, learn what they do, how you play with them, sort of things that you can do with them. We're not going to go into a lot of detail about specifics about it. What have I got to say? This might be the last broadcast for a little while. I'm going to still try and do it tentatively on a weekly basis, but there's no guarantees that I'll be able to do that. But we'll just sort of see how she goes. It might be good. I might be able to find the time to do it. I might not, but got a few things happening at the moment, so I just need to try and take care of everything as best I can. I hope the volume's alright for you guys. I've sort of been playing around with the settings here a little bit, just trying to get things right. I haven't 100% got the UFX sorted out yet. It keeps dropping out every now and then. I lose audio, but so I'm just monitoring everything through the microphone from the speakers, so you won't get all the lovely stereo goodness, but hopefully you'll get the idea of what's going on in any case. I hope the volume's all okay and that the picture's okay. If you see any problems with it, just stick a comment up in the window and let me know if you're finding that it's got a lot of lag, or it's not or stuttering a lot. Just let me know and I'll drop the bandwidth down for the broadcast. So I'll just take it offline briefly and just drop the broadcast down, just so you get more of a smooth experience. Don't have much else going on. One thing that sort of has come up this week, I've had a few guys email me and sort of ask how they can contribute or help out or donate or whatever. I really appreciate the really good thoughts, guys. It does humble me that you guys think that or are getting value out of what I'm doing here, and I guess that's why I do it, is so that you do find value. But I never entered into this hoping to get anything out of it. Look, if you guys really do want to give some cash or whatever, look, the best way to do it, just buy a copy of Bravo. Like, it's for $20 you get a really good sound set that you can stick on your system, and you get something out of it. I get a little bit out of it as well. But that's probably the best way that you guys can help it, because you're getting something for your money as well. If you already have Bravo, or $20 is a little bit too steep, and I know you got 50 cents you want to give or whatever, I have put up on the Kunka forums in the Mahogany Room a little chip in. So I've put up there what it's cost me so far in terms of getting the camera and the software. Look, if I make that back over the next 2 or 3 years from between Bravo and guys chipping in, that'll be great. If I don't, well, that's good too. It's not why I'm doing this. Anyway, that's enough about that. I think we might get stuck into the FUNS. I'm not sure how long this program's going to go. We're not going to cover it in too much depth, but I have set aside now, but might be a bit of a quicker one. All right. The first thing that we want to talk about with FUNS is that they are, I guess the most important thing to remember about FUNS is that they are control sources. I get a lot of questions on the forum and emails and on mailing lists and that about a lot of comments and questions and whatnot. People have got a sound and they want to do something with it using the FUNS. They say, "Oh, we can treat this sound using FUNS and twist it around." I think that a lot of people have got this preconception in their minds that FUNS are this really complex thing that involves a lot of maths, and they're really, really powerful, and you can do all this stuff to your sound, and that's true, but they don't they don't have to be complicated. You don't need to have a lot of maths. You don't need to understand a lot of maths to use them. And I guess the thing is, when you manipulate your sound, you're not actually manipulating the audio on it. You're not doing anything to the sample or anything like that. You're actually changing or creating a controller from it. So look, I've done a little graphic here, and I'm just going to pull it up, and we're just going to have a look through, and we're just going to go through everything that's in it. So the first thing I understand here is that functions are for control data only. So that they don't act on your audio signal. They don't do anything on the audio pathway between the oscillator or the key map and your audio outputs. The audio never passes through a function. With software like Reactor and stuff like that, you can do things on audio, but if you're thinking in terms of Reactor and you're familiar with it, this is more like a MIDI function or a controller function on there, where you can do things to the control signals. So FUNS can use 0, 1 or 2 control sources as their feed. You don't have to have anything going into a FUN to make it do stuff. And sometimes in fact, I find that probably half the time I'm only using 1 control source, sometimes I'm using 2. Another thing to understand is that FUNS can feed back into themselves or into each other, and it doesn't create a problem in terms of feedback loops because of the evaluation time and the way they're evaluated. They're evaluated every 20 milliseconds, and there's a little star next to that. And the reason for that is that, from what I've been able to work out, and I've been using FUNS for a long time, things like LFOs, for example, the FUNS don't sample the LFO every 20 milliseconds and make like a stepped sort of output. I think what they do is that they sample the parameters within the FUNS every 20 milliseconds and make a change. But if the underlying control data is still going through, it just applies the parameters while that data is traveling through the FUN. So, for example, if you've got an LFO going through and you add a constant to it, and you change that constant, what will happen is the LFO will just keep doing its thing, and then on the next 20 milliseconds, once the constant's changed, it'll actually move the LFO up and down. But the LFO will keep going. The LFO itself doesn't get sampled every 20 milliseconds. Only the parameters are within the FUN. So look, that is there's a little diagram there. You can see the 2 yellow ones, and this is essentially how FUN works. It takes some controller sources, and it does stuff to them. So you put them into this FUN, the FUN does something to them, and it creates a new control source out of the 2 that are coming in. And those control sources could be as simple as a constant. They could be something like a mod wheel. They could be an LFO. They could be an envelope, an ASR. They could be another FUN. They could be the same FUN itself. There's no real limit to what you can put into there. It could be some of the clock sources, some of the Kurzweil specific controllers. So that's really what FUNS do. So they work on the control stream, and I'll just give you some examples of, I guess, where you would use FUNS and the sort of things that you look at using them for. When I program synths, and FUNS as an example of this, I'm pretty pragmatic about it. Like, I won't go out and say, oh, there's a FUN there, I've got to use it to do something with it. I get along and program a sound, and when I come across a problem or there's something that I want to do, I'll look at the best way to achieve what I'm looking for. And hopefully that came across in the programming with the Puppeteer program that we did on Sunday, that I have something in mind of what I want to achieve, or something that I want to do with the sound, and then I'll look for a solution to do it. And sometimes it's just assigning a controller. Sometimes it's putting a new block in, a DSP block. Sometimes it is looking for a function to do something particular to a sound. And that's how I approach FUNS programs. You don't go looking for a use for a FUN, though that can be, I guess that can be, there's a certain charm in doing that in terms of investigating the machine, and there's nothing wrong with doing that if that's the way you want to program it. But for me, I look at the problem or what I'm trying to achieve, and then go about trying to solve it using the tools I have at my disposal. And the functions are really good for solving control problems. So if I want to do something, I mean, for example, I might want to have a controller that, well, let's just say we want, if we move the mod wheel, and what we want the mod wheel to do is at the bottom, we want the mod wheel to be full volume. In the middle, we want it to be a low volume, and at the top, we want it to be a full volume again. So instead of having, whereas a mod wheel is normally linear, at the bottom it's at the low end, and when you move it up, it goes to the full value. You can use functions to do things like, I want to duck it in the middle but have the two ends at the highest point. So that's an example of where you'd look at using a function, because you've got this controller and you say, well, look, I want to change the behavior of it. I want a common, I use this occasionally, and a common thing is if I want to fade a sound in the middle. So sometimes you've got 3 layers and you want to crossfade between the 3 layers, and this is an example of where I'd use a fun. And on layer 1, you can set crossfade. You set the crossfade to reverse so that when the mod wheel's down, layer 1's on, and when the mod wheel's up, layer 1's off. And then layer 3, you can set it the opposite way, so when the mod wheel is up. So let's just go and have a look at what we're talking about here. Okay, so the what I'm talking about is in here we've got a where are we? Okay. Oh, it's not the enable parameter. This alright. Here's crossfade parameter here on the output page. So what we can do is we can set this to the mod wheel, for example. So I've got, so that's as I move the mod wheel, that fades. So if we put this at reverse, so layer 1 will put this at reverse, and so the mod wheel's down now. As I move it up, it comes on. So let's create 2 more layers. Okay. So layer 3, let's put this one on normal, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the key map on this one so you can hear what we're doing. So let's change this to, oh god, I don't know, saw wave. So okay, so that you can hear that fade there. Now layer 2, what I might want to do is have that fade in the middle and come up. Okay, with the mod wheel. So what we do on the output page, we can set this to another thing. So let's set this to just trying to work out which way. We'll play with it later. We'll leave it on reverse for now, and let's set this to function 1. So I think that's there we go, function 1. Okay, so probably the easiest way to do this is just to set it to a triangle wave, because that's essentially what we want. So let's set input A to mod wheel, and let's just set this to triangle. Okay, and I'm gonna solo this layer. Let's just go back to key map. I just want to put something else in here that we can hear. So maybe I'll just maybe I'll transpose it up to 2 octaves. Okay, and change this back to, oh, I don't know, buzz wave. That sounds pretty good. Okay, so I'm going to solo this. Alright, so what we've done, let's just go back to our function 1. If you've got any questions or you want to stop me, guys, just let me know, and I'll explain stuff, answer questions for you guys. Right, where are we going? Functions. Okay, so what we've got here is we've got the mod wheel assigned to input A. We've got nothing assigned to input B. And we've got this triangle wave. So what we're looking at doing is we want it to fade it out at the bottom and the top, and we want it full volume in the middle. So I've got the mod wheel down, and let's just listen to see what it does as I move it up. Okay, and that does exactly what we want it to do. So this is so if we unsolo this, so at the bottom we've got, all Alright, so we've just used a function there to crossfade between three layers, nice and easy. And that's the sort of stuff that I look for when I'm using functions. So what you're seeing here is that this is an example. We've only got one input. Very simple function. It just so what the triangle function does, just to explain it, is it's a bit like the shaper. It translates a sawtooth wave into a triangle wave. Okay, so that's really what it does. So the sawtooth wave, or the ramp, is me ramping up the mod wheel, and as I do that, it peaks in the middle and then goes down at the top end. So I think what I'm trying to say here is that functions take MIDI controller data, or some sort of controller data, and it does something to it. In this case, it does a triangle function to it, and then it outputs something new, which is FUN1. So if we go back and have a look at what we're on the crossfade parameter on the amp page, hang on, no, sorry, output page. Sorry guys, I'm getting a little bit confused here. Right, so what we've done is that we have assigned function 1 as a control source. And that, if you drill down into function 1, and this is where the architecture of the cursor is really good, because if you select FUN1 and you press edit, you can immediately see what you've got assigned there. So you can drill straight down and find out what control sources are making that up. So some of the other things, I guess some of the simple things we'll go through now and just talk about some of the functions that, some of the common things that I use functions for. The first one is adding controllers together, or averaging controllers. So let's say that you've used source 1 and you've used source 2 and you've used your depth controller and you've used them all, and you want another controller to control that particular parameter. So what you can do is that, as I did on the programming with Puppeteer on Sunday, what I did is I'd run out of control location. So what I did is I took one of the controllers out of that source, and I put it into a function, and then I assigned this very useful function here called a plus b on 2. So what this does is it adds these two together and averages them. So you still get the same overall range, but you've now got two controllers getting mixed in to provide that input. So that's a nice easy one. A plus B and A minus B are pretty self-explanatory. All they do is they add two controllers together. And the simplest one, if you want to look at this, is that you can put in, say, 0.5 and 0.5. Okay, and that's going to result in a 1. Okay, so that's the easiest way. And on is the same as 1. So if it's set to on, alright, so again, the output of these functions, the internal resolution of these functions is actually a bit higher than what it can. Well, sorry, it's divided, I think, into 100 levels, and then that's for plus and for minus, and then what they do is they translate that into the MIDI of between 0 and 127. So functions have got their own maths behind them in terms of conversion, but for what you want to do, basically, your inputs and your outputs, if you think about it, you can range from -1 up to +1. And now there's some of the more advanced functions, and some of the harder ones to get your head around, do things like multiply by 8 or take something to the power of 10 or something like that, and it way exceeds the calculation of that 0 to 1. But what it does is that the functions then render that back down into a usable range that your functions can do. So the output of all the functions is going to be a range of -1 to +1. So they're essentially bipolar MIDI controllers. Okay, so we'll just quickly run through. Well, let's go through some of the range of inputs you can have here. So you can have, these are all constants that you can have, and then you go through all of your entire control list. So you've got mod wheel, you know, all the usual suspects there that you can see when you assign it to any other controller. So this is the set of Kurzweil controllers. You've got the MIDI. These are all now the internal ones. MIDI controllers. You've got your random number, poly pressure. Your triggers, ASRs, more functions. So you can see here we can assign function 1 as an input to function 1. There's nothing wrong with doing that. It'll just evaluate it. It'll sample what's there, and then the next time around it'll resample its own output. There's no problem at all doing that. Sometimes it's very useful. There's a little tutorial on the FUNS library up on the Kunka website. I've set up some functions there to act as a memory register, so it can remember its state. You can use it like basically like a bit of memory, and you can press a controller, it will change and it will maintain that state until you press that switch again, and then it will flick to the other state. So you can do things like that using that, and you do that using feedback. So yeah, basically both the inputs and the outputs can have the full range of MIDI controllers that are available, and they can and then the output is, again, it gets a -1 and +1. It doesn't matter what function you use, the output's always going to be between that. So when it goes into a when the function gets assigned to whatever parameter you want to do, you can be sure that the Kurzweil looks after the scaling of it, so you don't have to worry too much about it. So I guess one of the things you can do is you just play around with these and see some of the cool stuff that they do, and some of the things that you can achieve, and sometimes just playing around doing random stuff. If you want, you've got an LFO, for example, and you want it to do something different, you just don't want it just to be the sort of up and down, you want it to do stuff in the middle or move around. A real quick way is just to assign this LFO down to just assign LFO here and just play around with these functions. Just, I don't know, stick some numbers in there, and I don't know. Let's actually just turn this on because we haven't got a rate at the moment. Okay. Okay, so that's the LFO. So accurate. And we just play with some of these other ones. Okay, so that's just taking that LFO and just doing something to it. Okay, so you can. So what we're doing is we're creating these new shapes from the LFOs, and that can be something that you can very quickly and very easily do if you want to create a different type of movement within your sound. Perhaps you want to do your filter sweeps instead of having it just a standard old LFO. You want it to be a little bit different. You want it to have some sort of different movement or something random about it. If you random stuff, you find the all these ones that have got Y in them are actually chaos functions. Where are we? There we go. A times B take Y, and what this Y is, it's actually the output of that function gets rehashed around. So in some ways this has actually got 3 parameters because it's got its own output. So these are truly chaotic functions, and they can do the results are usually very unpredictable. But if you want that, and you want them to move or to do weird stuff, that can be a really good way to so you're still getting that sort of movement, but it's doing these weird sort of shapes to it. So that can be a really good way to add movement or add something different to your sound. And you can vary the functions on the layer. So it's really, like, if you want to duplicate layers and have something different going on in each thing. So maybe you've got them in different pan positions, but you want the sound to pulse slightly differently. Just duplicating the layer and just assigning the function or changing one of the inputs or putting a different constant in there can create that sort of movement very, very easily. So let's just go through, we'll just run through the functions and we'll just have a real brief explanation, I guess more about the classes of functions that are there and some of the things that you can do. You've got the arithmetic ones, which are things like A plus B, A minus B, So this is fairly simple maths, and like this is what you do in a calculator. So you take A divided by 4, you take B divided by 2, and then you add those two together, and whatever the result of that is what gets output in the function. So all of these ones are quite similar. A times B is a multiplication one. It's useful for if you want to make curved envelopes, for example, or you want to curve a linear controller like a mod wheel or some other thing. Stick them both A and B, set them to the same, like envelope, amp envelope and amp envelope, for example. A times B. What suddenly happens is that those all those curves now become parabolic. So they as they get closer to the maximum, they go up at a much faster rate. So that's a nice useful way if you want to make bendy envelopes or curvy envelopes. That's a nice easy way to do it. It's not the only, but it's one way. Negative A minus B multiplied by B. Again, pretty self-explanatory. This one here is one of the ones which doesn't quite do what it says. It is a log function. It does do logarithmic stuff within the function itself, but there's a little bit of tricky maths there to get it back to the thing. So that one's not exactly as written. Have a look in the manual though, to sort of see exactly what it does. This is the absolute value of A and B. So what it does is it whatever the value of A plus B is, if it's negative, this function just makes it positive. So you might have, let's say A is minus 1 and B is minus 0.5. So if you add A to B, you get negative 0.5. The absolute value of that makes it positive. So you always get, this is always going to give you a positive outlet. This one here, for example, if you want your pitch bend, for example, to bend up when you push it up and down, this is a nice easy one. Just assign your pitch bend or your pitch wheel to A. So we can do that here and assign it just like that. And now if we go back and have a look at, let's just turn the pitch off. So we're just going to turn the pitch bend off here. And what we're going to do is instead we're going to assign it to the pitch page. So let's just find the pitch. DSP, where are you gone? Alright. So let's assign this to pitch wheel. Let's put 1 octave in there. So now I'm going to push it up. Oh, hang on. Let me just... Sorry, I've got the crossfade still on, so I can't hear the output. Let's just turn this off and put that on. Okay, so now what I'm going to do, let's go back to that function page. No questions yet, I must be doing a good job. So, but look guys, seriously, if you've got questions, stop me, ask questions. I'm happy to explain stuff. We're getting sort of close to the end of this anyway. I'm going to talk a little bit longer, but look, if you got some questions, you got specific questions about functions, hit me up and I can sort of spend the next 30 minutes or so answering them, going through them in as much detail as you need. Alright, so we're just back to this one here. So what we've got pitch bend and we've got absolute value. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to start with the pitch bend in the middle, the pitch wheel in the middle. I'm going to push it up, back to the center, down, and then back to the center. Okay, and what you should hear is that the pitch will only pitch up. Okay, so here we go. Okay, that didn't work how it was supposed to. Wonder why that is. Oh, hang on. Huh. That's weird. That's very weird. Alright, let me investigate and see what's going on here. That's why, because I've assigned the pitch wheel, not the function. Alright, I'm an idiot. I admit it. Alright, let's go and find the function. Let's try this again. Alright. Let's go and edit this. Alright, we'll try again. I don't feel so stupid now. So, all right. Again, we're going to try this. We're going to push it. First of all, start with the pitch wheel in the center. Push it up, back to the center. Push it down, back to the center. All right. So that's what we were expecting to hear. And just as there is actually a pre-programmed function there, which you probably saw as we were going through here. So it's called ABS, where is it? Let's just go back to the pitch wheel, sorry. It's called Absolute Pitch Wheel. So this one here does exactly the same thing. This is actually pre-programmed, and this one here does exactly the same as that function that we just programmed. Sorry, I'll just play a little bit louder. So there's a few of these things that are in there, and the same thing if we go to if we have a look at some of these monopressure and mod wheel. This is actually a function. It's a pre-programmed function that Curves will have included in the PC3. These weren't available on the K2600 or the K2000. These are new ones because I think that when they were doing a lot of their programming, they're finding they were using these combinations a lot, so they decided just to stick them together as an additional control source. So again, breath and foot controller. You've got soft pedal and mod wheel, and so you've got some of those pre-programmed. Alright, so that's I think we've covered a little bit more of that. But anyway, let's go back to the functions. We're going to go through, we'll keep going through these functions. So we've got more absolute value. Now, min and max AB are pretty simple. All they do is that they work out for minimum, they work out which one of pitch wheel and input B, or input A and input B is smallest, and it returns that. So it doesn't actually do any more maths than that. It's just it just chooses one or the other. So these are good for things such as if you only want the mod wheel to kick in once you hit 50%. So you only want to control over that top level, and when you bring the mod wheel back down, you want it to retain that midpoint. Perfect for that. You just set the mod wheel and input B to 0.5, and then basically, well, sorry, this is a minimum one. The maximum is what I'm talking about, but the minimum, the mod wheel would then only act on the lower half of the curve, and it would get pinned at the midpoint. So it's nice and simple. Maximum is the opposite, just picks whichever one's biggest. Now, quantize B to A, you probably saw. I use sample B to A, but quantize B to A works best with rhythmic sources, but you can do it with things like switches or mod wheels or whatever. What this does is well, let's just have a look at it. So let's just put this as the LFO that we had. So LFO1, okay, and let's put this to one of the clock sources that we have. So let's just say clock A clock 2. So okay, that's not doing anything. But basically, what this does is that when it will quantize whatever's coming into here to be. So it makes things choppy. I think that wasn't probably the example that I just gave you there. I'm just trying to think of, let's just put, nope, just trying to think of some other examples where, oh, hang on. Let's just go back here. Alright, so let's just put this back onto LFO1. Okay, you can see here how LFO1 is now stepped, so it's, so if we put this, where's B is gone. If we go, sorry. Okay, so it sort of steps them. So what it does is it samples B whenever the A is activated. So whenever this input here is activated, it this one. Okay, sample B on A, which is, I'll get to that in a second. Low pass and high pass, they're actually filters. What they do is that they're good. The low pass is like a lag equation. So, if you make a step change, so if you put a switch on, what it does is it smooths it, and it sort of rolls it off nice and slow. So, it will change. Basically, it'll change a step change into a nice slide, if you like to think of it that way. High pass does the opposite. What it does is if you move something slowly, it won't register a change. But if you move it quickly, it will register the change and it will let it straight through. So if you put a switch in, it'll switch up and then it will sort of sweep back down to zero, because once it's swept up, it's not changing. So those ones are a little bit more advanced in terms of using, but just think of them in terms of they're like a lag equation. I think that's the best way to describe them. B over 1 take K, again, that's arithmetic functions. This is a chaos function. A plus B squared, again, that's fairly self-explanatory, but this will make like a parabolic curve, again, good for bending envelopes. Now, the sine, cosine, and angle are the ones that take sawtooth inputs and they convert them, a sawtooth into a sine, a sawtooth into a cosine, or a sawtooth into a triangle wave. So we've had a look at how that works. Now the warp equations, I'm not going to go into those in detail here, but they're non-linear equations. So what they do is they're like a bit like a wave shaper. You can put a signal into them like a again, if you put your ramp signal into them, they do things like, one of them is a vary phase. So what it will do is it will reverse the phase as you ramp it up. It sort of ramps up, goes back to zero, then ramps up, and then it can change direction. So I'm not going to go into those at the moment, but they're non-linear. They do weird things to signals if you just sort of don't understand exactly what they do. But they're good. They're good to experiment with and just play with. You don't need to understand exactly what they do. But if you want something weird that's going to do something, maybe is the right word, does something unpredictable, but it does it regularly. So if you put a LFO through these things, they will give you the same sort of output each time. It'll still be rhythmic, but it will have a different shape. So they're really good for like really messing up waveforms and stuff like that. And each of them have got different equations. They're described in the manual. The maths isn't actually that hard to follow if you want to go through it. So now we've got the Boolean function, so A and B. So that'll output 1, like full value, when both input A and input B are above 0.5. So basically it's good for switches, so you can have two switches enable something, or you might want to enable an ASR. A good example of how to use this is you might want to enable an ASR, for example, when you've got the switch switched on and you push the mod wheel up. And then once you do that, you want the ASR to trigger. So you might be just hanging along with your mod wheel normally. It's doing something, but as soon as you hit that switch and the mod wheel at the same time, it will trigger something else. So it's good for, like, an example where you might want to use that is you are playing. Let's say you're playing a song and you've got a chorus part, and where you've got the chorus, you want to. I don't know, let's say you're playing a piano and you want the strings to kick in at certain parts in the chorus. So, and you want it controlled by the mod wheel. So when the mod wheel's down, for example, you don't want it active, but you only want it active when you're sort of pushing it up and maybe doing some vibrato stuff. You want the strings to kick in. So what you can do is that you can use this to say mod wheel and switch. And then when that switch is on and you're playing your chorus part, when you push the mod wheel up, those strings will kick in just for those little bits. So that's the sort of places where you'd use that. You can use it to. I use functions like this to do layer switching and to use the A and B clocks to sync things up and to make holes in things. So you can get really technical about using your A and B, and you can use I use it also for the memory register stuff that I was doing. A or B, either one or the other is up. It's a good one if you want to. I don't know. Let's say that you have got a couple of foot pedals on the ground, and for a particular song you don't want to care which one you press. You just want to make sure you hit one and they both work as a sustain pedal. For example, this works perfectly for that. You can have two signals coming in, and whichever one you hit is going to engage sustain. It doesn't matter if you hit the soft pedal or if you hit the sustain pedal. It's going to send the message through. So that's a good one there. And the other good thing about that is you can multitask stuff. So what you could do is that you could use this for the soft pedal and for the sustain pedal to sustain, but also, so if you press the sustain pedal, it'll sustain. If you press the soft pedal, it'll sustain. But what you can do is that you can now make the soft pedal act as both a soft pedal and a sustain pedal at the same time. So if you've still got soft assigned to your soft pedal, and you use this and then assign this function to your sustain pedal, when you press your soft pedal, it's going to act both as a soft and a sustain. So that can be a nice little workaround for if you guys are playing piano live and you want to I guess free up a pedal to sort of multitask in some particular things you're doing. This is a way that you can do it. You can have one pedal doing two functions at the same time using this sort of stuff. Okay, B is greater than A. If B is the bigger number, it will output 1. If it's not, it'll output 0. Now these ramp functions, what these do is they actually generate. These are ones that are a little bit different. They actually generate a sawtooth wave and A and B actually determine the frequency of that wave. So I'll just show you this really quickly. So let's just put this to mod wheel. Okay. All right. So if we've got mod wheel down, as we bring it up, you'll hear that it'll slowly start ramping faster and faster. So these are, and one of the common things that I use these for is you can get a ramp and then put it through a sine wave, and you can make additional LFOs. So because the cursor's only got 2 LFOs per layer, if you want more, use these ramp functions, and they can be programmed differently to the LFOs. So it's good if you need to do some other weird stuff with them, or if you need to control the rate in a different type of way to what you normally control an LFO. You can get some pretty exact things if you sit down and work the maths out on them. But yeah, so you've got a whole range of ramp functions, and they can take multiple inputs to control the frequency. But the inputs of these two here do this equation, and then the output of that equation determines the frequency of the output of that. So that could be, again, this is one of those ones where the output of the function isn't evaluated every 20 milliseconds, but it samples these two every 20 milliseconds. This ramp just keeps getting generated. So yeah, they're quite useful. But if you just think of them as sawtooth LFOs, essentially, is the easier way to think of all the ramp functions. And the higher the number of this evaluated thing, the faster that LFO is going to go. Okay, again, this is another chaos function. You've got a whole range of these here. Now, these are the sample B on A. You would have seen I used this in programming with Puppeteer number 1. This is the easiest way to create a sample and hold on the cursor, is to just sample. So whenever A happens, so you might want to do this as, you can put this in an LFO, and that's what we had in the first one. So you can just put this as a LFO, and then you can get this here, just assign this to grand1. Wherever we are. Alright, grand1. Alright. So let's speed this up a little bit. We've got some nice 70s science fiction there. So that's how you can build a sample and hold. Some people I've seen it said that these things don't do sample and hold or don't have random LFOs. You can just build them, and that's what functions are good for. So that's another one. That's good. Sample B on this little tilde here means sample on not A. So it samples when A. So if we play it, it's going to sound very similar. But what it's doing is it's sampling on the low end of the LFO rather than the high end. That's the difference between these two. Sometimes you want to sample... these are good if you want to do stuff... for example, you might have two layers that you want to pan differently and you want to sample, or you want them to syncopate between two different layers. You can sample... You can set them up the same. Sample one when the LFO is high, one when the LFO is low, and you can get things. So you can do volume stabs, for example, using this quite simply. Track B while A is very similar. So, but what this will do is it'll track whatever B is. So if you've got so if we change this to G phase, and let's just slow the LFO down a bit. Okay. So put this at 1 Hertz. All right. So what you'll hear now is it's actually going to track this this controller when LFO 1 is at the high state, and then it will stop tracking it when it's at the low state. Okay, that's probably not a good one. Let's go back to... just trying to think. Yeah, G phase should work. Alright, let's try something else. Let's try B clock 4. Okay, that's interesting. Oh, doesn't seem to be working properly, but let's just try. So what it should do, let's just try mod wheel here. No, so track B. Okay, that's working better. So I'm moving the mod wheel up and down here, and you can hear that when the LFO goes up, it tracks that thing. So whereas sample B on A will sample it and hold that level, track B while A will actually track it through. While it's active, it'll just report whatever that controller is. The diode equations are how to describe these. They actually do act a bit like an electronic diode. So if you know electronics, these do a pretty similar sort of thing. Essentially what they do is that they allow the signal through at particular points of the curve. So it tracks the signal. One of the examples is it'll track the signal from 0.5 up to the full, and then when it's not tracking it, it'll just leave it flat. So what it does is it will let the signal through under some conditions, but it won't let it through under other conditions. And that's sort of how a diode works. A diode lets current go through one direction, but not through the other direction. This is the same sort of thing. It will let the controllers go through over a small range. There's a number of different things there. So track B while not A is same as track B while A. I don't know why they haven't got them together. They used to live together in the K2600, but they don't anymore. Again, we've got some more another arithmetic function at the end. So look, we've just run through the functions that we got there. We've got another 10 minutes. If anyone's got any questions, let me know. I must be explaining myself quite well, but anyway, that's what we've got for functions. What I might do now is I'll just you guys on Kunk are probably aware of this program, amazing little piece of work that Chuck put together called Visual Fun. So I'm just going to bring it up on the screen and just show it to you very, very briefly, give you a little bit of a run through on it. Essentially what this is, this tracks. Basically, Chuck and I sat down and we went through all the functions on the K20 and we mapped them out and we worked out what the response was as best we could. We couldn't get them exact, particularly the low pass and the high pass filter. It be very well in positive territory, but negative territory we due to a few programming issues, you can't get to exactly match what the Kurzweil does, but it's pretty similar. But in all other cases, what we did, we actually went through and mapped these, so we didn't take it for the manual of it, because some of the functions in the manual are a little bit different to how they are on the K2600. So what we went through is we went through and mapped them and mapped their behaviours. We Chuck did a lot of work getting the envelopes working properly, getting the LFOs working properly. So look, he's put an extraordinary amount of work in here, but let's just have a look at the functions page. You'll see that they're pretty much set up exactly the same as they are on the Kurzweil screen. So you've got, again, the same sort of the same sort of list that you've got there. You've got all your constants up there. You've got all your sliders and whatnot. So one of the ones that we had was well, let's program that same sample and hold that we had. So we want a sample B on A. So let's set up the LFO1. So we'll select LFO1 there. We'll select I think grand. All right, it's got round 1 there. We'll LFO up to let's set it up to 1 hertz, and it's a sine wave. Alright, so we'll get to these functions. Sorry, LFO, we want to set this to square wave. Sorry about that. Alright, we'll go back to functions, and then what we can do is that we can turn this on. Oh, hang on. Sorry. I forgot to set the function. Alright, so what we want to do is we want to set this to sample B on A. Okay, where's sample B on A? It's actually in alphabetical order, which makes a little bit more sense than the other one. Okay, so now if we press on, you'll see it'll sample on the LFO, and this is essentially making that same exactly the same LFO that we had. But this lets you see it. I'm not sure how the might be if it apologise, but essentially this does the same thing. You visually see what these functions are doing, and you can run all 4 of them. Here, one of the other ones. Yeah, look, Chuck has put an extreme amount of time into programming this. He asked me to bug test this. I don't think he was quite knew what he got himself in, because I managed to get good proper for him a few times. But look, to his credit, he went through, he fixed all the problems, and I think there's only little tiny bugs that probably I don't know if he's ever going to come back and have a look at this. Is that the pulse width modulation, or the old PW K26 a act as a DC offset, and it doesn't work quite on the PP3. I use that to map out the different the dealers. I made a special program that actually mapped a funky audio. We could sample it and have a look at it in the I'm just going to get out of this. That's coping. But what we did is that we mapped them and sampled them into the into a sampling program, and then we could actually see exactly what the function did by moving controllers and whatnot. We could actually visually record them. It's not a very good program for your speakers, hence why I haven't actually released it. I've put it out on very limited release to some people I know know exactly what they're doing with Kurzweil and aren't going to break their speakers. Basically, you can put a DC offset out, which burns out speaker cores very, very quickly. So it's not really for general consumption. But that's how we did a lot of the work with Visual Fun, and how Chuck got it up and running. Yeah, this wasn't my project. This was Chuck's project. I was just sort of helping him out as best I could. But he did a remarkable job on this thing, and it's the easiest way to plan some functions. And if you want to achieve something in particular, it's the easiest way. You just draw it up in the functions, and then you just transpose them straight into your as well. It doesn't. It isn't. Hasn't been updated to the PC3, but most of the functions are the same in the PC3 and the K2600. So, look, if you want to play around with that. The other place that I will point you to, I'm just going to bring it up on the web page. Just a sec, is actually the FUNS library in the classroom on Kunka. We've always been meaning to go back and do a bit more on this, but there are a lot of stuff already in there at the moment. So let's just go up and have a look. FUNS library. I'll just find it for you guys. There we go. I'll just bring this up on the page so you can see it. Functions library here, and what we've done is a whole bunch of stuff that we've got down here, using functions to do some pretty standard stuff. Lots of screenshots for you, different things. Some of these we've done. Kurzweil did some. Daniel Fisher authored some of these and posted them to the list. So it's all sorts of different functions, things, and how to operate them to do things like curved envelopes, for example. So yeah, if you want some shortcuts to doing some of the common stuff, have a look in there. It's already done for you. You could just have to copy the pages into your machine, essentially. So a bit of a discussion there about some of the bits and pieces. So look, guys, thanks for tuning in. I see there's no questions yet, so hopefully I've covered the functions quite nicely and you've got a little bit better understanding for what they do. But look, just to recap quickly before we go, we've covered quite a bit more territory than I was expecting to. Kurzweil PC3 functions, now remember they're for controller data only. They don't do anything to your sample or to the sound source. All they do is they control whatever like if you think whatever you can assign the mod wheel to, you could replace that instead with a function. That's an easy way to think of it. So you can't assign the mod wheel to do, I don't know, weird stuff. You can't actually get your sound to go through a mod wheel. You can get the mod wheel to act on a filter or the envelope or the LFO or whatever other parameter you can assign it to, and that's where functions do exactly the same thing. So they don't work on audio or samples at all. They can use 0, 1 or 2 control sources, and actually I should put there's a few of them that can actually technically use 3 because they've got that that feedback, the chaos ones, and they can also feed back on themselves or into each other without any problem. They're evaluated every 20 milliseconds, and actually they're actually done in order. They go evaluated function 1, function 2, function 3, function 4, and the LFOs are actually evaluated. So they're evaluated in the same order as they are in the control list. The LFOs are calculated in between function 2 and function 3. Sometimes that can be very useful. You also, by switching globals on, you can make function 2 and function 4 global, which means that they're always active, and you can assign global controllers, and you can assign them as global controllers that persist throughout the program, even between different node on and node offs. So things like global LFOs, for example, can get processed through global FUNS. We can process normal things through there, but the functions then become global and will persist between key presses and stuff like that. Basically, the little diagram there shows that you have a number of controllers that come into the function. The function does stuff to those controllers, combines them in all sorts of ways, different ways, but the output out of that is a new controller that you can then use anywhere on the control list. Look, guys, it's coming up to 10:30, so look, we've hit the 1 hour thing pretty nicely. So look, I'm gonna wrap it up there. I just want to give a big shout out to the guys that have the guy that has thrown a bit of money my way so far. He's done that as a way of expressing his appreciation. I really do appreciate that. I am humbled by it. I just want to say thank you to the guys that are doing that. It's just it makes me feel good that I'm doing something you guys are finding valuable, and that you're finding it valuable enough that you want to give me something back like that. I do this because I want you guys to try and understand it. So obviously I'm doing something right. But having said that, I'm open to suggestions. Again, we've got a few tutorials coming up. We're going to do the next programming with Puppeteer maybe this weekend. We'll see how we go. I don't think it will be late Sunday night, maybe Saturday night. And we're going to look at pads. We did virtual analog last week. We're going to look at pads. We've got a few other things, suggestions. People want to work out how to use riffs and arpeggios, so we're going to have a bit of a look at those. We're going to come back and have a look in detail at some more of the functions as well. So basically what I want to do from this one is just generate a little bit of understanding about how these functions work, the sort of things that you can do with them, the places that you'd use them, and maybe just sort of get you thinking about how the function actually does within the Kurzweil, and get rid of some of that. A lot of people have got a fear around functions because they've got maths in it and it's scary, I don't want to touch it, we just got maths. But they don't have to be complicated. You can just, I don't know, dial up something random and see what it does, and if you like the effect, then use it. A lot of my sounds that have got functions in them, that's exactly how they came about. I had some sort of idea about I wanted to do something a little bit different with the sound, put it in, just played with the parameters until I found something that I was happy with, or made a nice rhythmic pattern or something like that. So look, don't be afraid of them. Maybe get some ideas about some of the things that you're using, and have a few. Look, if it doesn't work out, let me know on the forums, and we'll do a tutorial on that particular function or trying to achieve what you're trying to do there. So I will go back and cover some of these things once you've had a bit of a chance to think about functions and hopefully understand them a little bit better. And we'll go through a few specific scenarios, I guess, a little bit more. We might work our way through the FUNS library or something, I don't know yet. So look, they're the suggestions we've got going forward. If you've got something else you want to know about on the Kurzweil, let me know, and look, we'll go through it. Look, I don't know everything about the machine. I know probably more about the K2600 than I do about the PC3, but look, it can be a learning experience for both of us. I've got no problem going through and deciphering parts of the manual for you guys if it completely bamboozles you. I got no problem going through that and trying to explain it to you guys in hopefully terms that you'll understand, or that are going to work for you. So yeah, look, anything goes on the PC3. Look, I hope this has been valuable to you. I hope you've got a bit of a better understanding about functions. I'm going to try and keep working on all these toys in my studio working. It's been pretty good actually this week. I've ripped out a lot of gear that has not been used for a while, so I've finally said goodbye to MLAN and the expensive bits of junk that I've been left with from Yamaha, which no longer function with any modern operating system. So thank you very much for wasting $5,000 on my money. So look, I've pulled a bunch of that stuff out. I've pulled out stuff for Might X8, sorry, that's come out. It's no longer usable at all. So I've put things in that I am using, put new audio interfaces in, move gear around, so I'm in the process of rewiring and hopefully get back into writing some music soon. So yeah, look, if anyone wants an 0-1X or an i88X or a Steinberg Might X8 for whatever reason, hit me up. I'm sure we can come to some sort of arrangement. I might just use them as decoration around the studio. I think this is probably their most likely destination. But look, guys, thanks for tuning in. thanks for the support that you guys are giving me. I really do appreciate the feedback that you guys are giving me, and look, I really do hope that these tutorials are valuable for you guys and that you're really getting something out of them. That's my aim to doing these. Again, I think we covered quite a bit of ground in 1 hour. It's certainly a lot more than I could do writing a tutorial. Each of those tutorials that are up on Mastering Vast probably took Brian and I don't know, maybe 8 to 10 hours each writing those, maybe some of them longer. All of those screenshots were done by hand. We did them in Photoshop or Excel or Word and did screen grabs of them and stuff like that. So all that stuff was sculpted by hand, took absolutely ages. So this is a much nicer and more interactive way for me. So guys, thanks very much. I'll see you around the forums. Hit me up in the Mahogany Room on the thread that we've got there. I'll put this video up there again once it's rendered across and I've checked for quality. Once it's up, I'll pop it up for you guys to enjoy. The plan still is at the end of this year, once the Mahogany Room memberships run out, I'm going to move these across to the public forum. So basically, being in the Mahogany Room is going to get you guys. You guys get to see these. You guys know when they're coming up live, so you can tune in and ask your questions about them. So the guys that haven't paid for the membership for Mahogany Room, yeah, look, they're still going to get to see them. They're going to get the content out of them, but it's going to be delayed somewhat, and they're not going to have the opportunity to come in and ask questions. So that's the I guess that's the benefit for you guys. I hope it's added to the value that you've got out of the Mahogany Room membership. I know it's getting the money together for that is a big ask. It certainly does help Brian keep the thing keep Kunkka on the air or on the web, and yeah, look, I just hope that this is makes you think that it's been money well spent. So guys, thank you very much for tuning in. I'm going to catch you guys maybe this weekend, and otherwise maybe next week, but no guarantees. Alright, thanks guys. See you from Perth.